They smothered Jokic into merely a triple-double. I'd take that game from Jokic the entire series if you promise me that he's going to be that kind of quiet and dominant. That's as well as you're going to do against the Denver offense.
It was a so-so game for Jokic. I mean,
it was a triple-double, and he dominated the entirety of the game, and they have no answers for him. And the Heat will lose in 4 games if the Nuggets get Bam Adebayo to just shoot mid-range jumpers the entire time. But the reason they lost, you can get better and smarter basketball analysis, in the weeds basketball analysis from what Amin did with Charlotte Wilder, an assortment, Tom Haberstroh, an assortment of others last night. We will get that. We have that out for you now. But what you saw last night was, I think you can reduce it to just what I'm about to tell you, which is if the Heat miss that many threes and if the Heat don't shoot free throws, they will lose every time because the way they win is defense, threes, and free throws. And that was a historically terrible free throw game. And then what you got from Strus, Caleb Martin, and Duncan Robinson must have infuriated Celtic fans.
I mean, they need more from Jimmy Butler as well. You have to. He's your superstar. He's the guy who's been compared to Kobe, LeBron, Michael throughout this postseason. He can't give you 13 points on the road, Game 1 NBA Finals.
And no free throws.
Yeah.
No free throws. It's weird because I'm obviously a Heat homer. The Heat just played an NBA Finals game in which they set a record for lowest free throw attempts in an NBA Finals game, and I came away thinking the officials killed it.
That's right. Yeah. I thought the Heat got too many free throws
hey,
that
wait.
game.
Highsmith earned that one. That was a good call.
Can we talk about the Highsmith minutes?
They wasted the Highsmith game. I mean,
they wasted
Highsmith's good,
They
man.
wasted a solid Bam game, a good Kyle Lowry game, Highsmith contributing. What was so difficult about yesterday, you mentioned Strus and Caleb Martin, they didn't just miss wide open looks. They missed premium looks. And if they just bury 2 of those, 2 of the 15 that were presented to them in the natural flow of the offense, that game is tight at the end.
Okay, but it felt like a 20-point loss. And
It did because I kept missing.
But it also felt like if you make some more shots, like we can, like it didn't feel like it's not a death sentence, that game.
I'm with Chris. I feel like if Jimmy gives you 30 points, you're right in the game. He gave you nothing.
There's little things there.
20 more points, I think
It's
they
easy
win.
math.
Honestly,
Right, I
the
mean.
Murray-Jokic pick and roll is one of the most insane things
impossible.
I've ever. And Highsmith did the best, just following Murray around.
He is very athletic, but when you say that performances were wasted on the Heat side, I would say absolutely not. What I would say to you that was wasted yesterday is that is as much as you're going to hold Denver down. That's a bad Denver game. You wasted a chance to beat them. When they shoot that poorly from 3, they lose. They're 6-8 this season. That's how to beat them. To hold them to 104 points is exactly how to beat them. But what you just saw offensively from the Heat was the team you saw all regular season that was last in the league in shooting, couldn't be trusted to shoot.
You can't really beat anybody in the NBA scoring 93 points, let alone a team that just swept its way into the NBA Finals in Denver.
Michael Porter's a problem.
Yeah, he's also an inconsistent player.
Watching them for the first time.
That guy loves shooting so much he will shoot you out of a game.
Yeah, I think what's a problem is defensively he's starting to come online a little bit. Mark Jackson made the comment that he's really improved defensively, and the last time I saw Michael Porter, he was not that defensively.
You also can't let Aaron Gordon look like prime Karl Malone.
Oh, no.
Well, that's
but
on Gabe Vincent.
No,
that's what I'm saying.
You put
No.
Jimmy on him, it looks totally different.
But you can't have Jimmy
It's
on
not
him.
on Gabe Vincent. It's on Jokic. This is what their offense does. They get people on the switch because they're trying to account for the best big man. And what happens is they'll cook you with Aaron Gordon on your switch.
The zone it's not going to work against Jokic. He will neutralize it. But when you mention Aaron Gordon, and they got a ton in the paint.
But the zone was kind of working. I mean, it was certainly working better than switching. They were picking apart that switch.
In the first quarter, Aaron Gordon and the Nuggets in general were doing everything at the rim. And I will tell you, since leaving Orlando, I have watched that Aaron Gordon game my entire time watching the Nuggets team since leaving Orlando. He is 12 points in the first quarter. End of the game, 16 points. Like, that's how it happens every time with that dude.
Classic Aaron Gordon.
Aaron Gordon is the reason that they're championship contender is because he's their 4th best player, And when he was the best player in Orlando, they were terrible.
A lottery team.
You remember in the Final Four where Miami ran into a huge Connecticut team and they just couldn't buy a bucket from inside the paint. We're seeing that. We saw that in Game 1 because as much we're going to talk about Max Strus missing all these premium wide open looks, there were 5 of 22 in the paint. 5 of 22 in the paint. That was basically Connecticut bullying the Miami Hurricanes.
That's because Jokic was just standing
He's
there
very
in
big.
the middle. They need, honestly,
Chris, that's what he
no,
does.
you're gonna think I'm joking here. You got to put. I think Kevin Love is an adjustment because it brings Jokic out. 'Cause with Bam, he's just like, I'm gonna stand here, Bam. You can hit those mid-range jumpers. I'll give you it all day. If you put Kevin Love in, it brings Jokic out, and there's more room.
What about
in
the
there.
other side of the floor, though? Then
That's
Kevin
the
Love
problem.
is like, they're like, all right, who do I guard?
That's the
No,
problem.
but if they're going to go zone, Kevin Love has a big body and he can bring down a board because what's frustrating is you get the stop. You're struggling from the field. And then Denver gets 3 chances at the hoop and you're not going to hold them at that point. So I do think if we're going to go zone, maybe do give Kevin Love because you can trust his shot. You need to bury open threes to beat Denver.
Second chance rebounding has also been a problem for this team going through every single opponent, right? And
especially when they're playing zone.
right. And now you're looking at a team that has long bodies that go and crash boards.
Kevin
It's like,
Love
what do you
cannot
do?
be the key
So
to the
long.
series.
Right,
I'm
exactly.
sorry.
It's
I'm
an
sorry.
adjustment.
Neither can
It's a
Cody
little
Zeller, by the way.
Excuse me, you just mentioned the second chance points. The second chance points does get addressed with one of the greatest rebounders in NBA history in Kevin Love out there in the zone. You're gonna give some stuff and you're gonna take some stuff with Kevin Love out there. And I think you need an open shooter that you can trust. Kevin Love may provide that. I love the NBA Finals. Look at us hyper analyzing. All they had to do was make 2 shots. All they had to do was make 2 shots
Strus
to
had
make
that one
that
that rattled in and out. Ah.
All
vintage
Jimmy
zone
had to
Heat
do
game.
was score 12 more points.
Well,
I mean,
Jimmy not going to the line is crazy. I don't know if he still doesn't trust his legs to get people up in the air and bite on that pump fake, but this isn't the Boston Celtics. Let's at least see if Denver can keep their feet. Let's see if they can avoid
I think
foul trouble.
he got spooked by Time Lord. He was like, if I pump fake, he's not moving, and then he's going to swap my shot.
Got
He's
spooked
just-
by Derek White.
Oof.
Are you guys worried about this series?
I've been
No.
worried about it.
Why? Here's a fact, Dan. He'd have never won a championship and won the first game of the finals.
how about
Yep.
that? Huh?
Fact.
Right on track.
Yep.
Factoid.
Here's another
Jack.
fact, though. The Heat have never trailed in a series in this postseason.
This is the first time.
Recency bias.
Strus,
Well said.
can you imagine thinking and dreaming your entire life of playing in the finals and then you have the game Strus had?
It's a nightmare.
Oh, that must feel so bad. I've dreamed all my life of playing in a finals game. The dream never went this way, where I missed every single shot I took.
It was really bad, but the important thing about Strus is that he keeps shooting,
Keep shooting.
and I
Real
trust him to
hoopers
keep
know.
shooting.
I mean, the reason the Heat are here right now is because of how well they've shot the ball. If they're just gonna if this series is just gonna come down to the Heat needing to make these shots, because if they shoot a little better yesterday, it's a
Make
totally
or
different
miss
game.
league, Chris.
I feel like they're gonna shoot a little better.
But it's different shooting up a mile high. You know,
That's
the
true.
ball travels
Well, let's play
differently.
this sound from Charles Barkley. Let's get to this sound because Charles Barkley heard a lot of talk about the altitude. And I would say, as part of the post-game extravaganza that Amin Al-Hassan did, he tested that altitude. You can check it out on YouTube by running the stadium steps during the post-game because the altitude is supposed to gas you.
Terrible form by him.
Mike Ryan
He
came.
doesn't run much.
He doesn't look like he runs much. Mike Ryan came in today and he said after 2 or 3 possessions, I felt like they had Jokic winded, that he was, and then he just always looks like
He
that.
just always maintains the
In
same.
Denver, in Miami, wherever he is, he looks winded.
You have to
I mean,
understand that was my first time watching Jokic play, so I
Right.
wasn't
He's
wasn't
good.
aware that 2
Yeah.
minutes in he looks exhausted, but he just maintains that
Yes.
level of exhaustion.
He has got that gritty toughness that is war-torn joylessness that he carries himself with. You're not going to out-tough him. You can throw Udonis Haslem
Cody Zeller tried.
into his ass crack or into his navel.
It ain't
Ah,
happening.
the Zeller minute.
Zeller, just throw him out there to bounce into
I think
Jokic.
Zeller is still sliding.
That's my favorite thing now is I get 42 tweets every time he comes in the game. Ah, the Zeller minute.
Well, you saw. How would you describe to the audience that didn't see Zeller just getting bumped and sliding how far across the floor?
Are you familiar with the Bag Raiders meme where anyone just started sliding and they were in the galaxy. The shooting stars meme, like that's where Zeller's in the galaxy right now.
He slid like 17 feet.
Yeah, it wasn't a foul, but I was still screaming foul. It's just, come on, look at his shoes.
He finally gets one rebound. He's super excited, and then they just pick it from him. Right
Jokic just like slaps it softly out of the ball, goes 14 feet the other way.
Damn it, Cody.
Go ahead and play the sound of Barkley talking about the altitude.
Just saying, though,
But the altitude, they've
not-
always run here.
I
They've
know
always
that, but I'm
been
saying,
up here.
well, why they ain't never make it to the finals until now?
They don't have the talent. And it's not good for a whole series either.
Shaq,
People get
Kobe,
acclimated in the fun.
I'm just saying, man, I hate when I hear that bogus stuff. Come on, man.
You're not buying it.
I mean, I'm looking around. I don't see no damn Nuggets banners up here.
That was like him doing an impression of himself. Like, come on, man.
I'm looking right now into the altitude where I see no Nugget banners. You guys did notice something. I'm sure the audience that was watching this last night noticed what I'm about to say, which is that undrafted stuff is super, super charming until you run into human beings who were drafted higher, because look at them. Look at how much bigger and stronger they are. I'm not going to say faster, because Jokic isn't faster than anybody.
Jokic was a second-round pick, by the way.
That's right, 41st overall, but picked.
Yeah.
But picked.
You're right, picked.
Yeah.
Yes, he was selected.
and-
It does feel obvious in retrospect, like, oh, a bunch of undrafted guys aren't going to shoot 50% from three the entire time.
The measurements physically on these guys. I remember Bomani mentioned this like 3 or 4 years ago. He said the Nuggets roster is the most talented that there is in the league. And I was questioning it because other teams had better players. But if you've got Gordon as your fourth as an athlete, two-way player, you're a really good basketball team. Because, yes, Porter can beat you, and it would be no surprise if he makes, 7 shots in a row. I mean, last night, the Heat, at one point, they're like, the Heat have made 7 in a row, down 6.
But that's what you have to live with. I'll take Michael Porter shooting. If that's what beats us,
because
that's what beats us.
he's going to be inconsistent. He's going to be inconsistent.
They'll also take Bam shooting 25 times.